Husker Nation, this interview with Coach Bill Busch is a little bit longer, but man, it is one of my favorite ones I've done in a long time. It is worth it. Get an inside look. A Division I coach for over 3 decades. What's he think of the offensive line, pass protection, Dylan Raiola, Matt Rhule distractions to Penn State? What does he think about the defense, tackling, the upgrades of special teams? Don't go anywhere. Let's chat, shall we? Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. You can also follow our guest today, Mr. Bill Busch, on X. I believe he's also on Facebook, myself on X, TikTok, and Facebook as well. And if you're like me, you're looking forward to hearing what a former national championship winning coach, a defensive coordinator, a special teams coordinator. You don't get a 2-for-1 very often in a guy like this, but if you're excited to hear what a co-host of one of the hottest shows in the state, Early Break on 93.7 The Ticket, has to say, then smash the like button. As always, if you haven't subscribed and or rang the notification bell yet, make sure you do so if you'd like to. If you don't want to miss any more of the unique interviews, content, and insight that we put out here on the channel. Without further ado, I want to bring on Mr. Bill Busch. How you doing, Coach?
Doing great. Same thing with Adam. I mentioned earlier right away when we got on here and we were talking offline a little bit. I just said, I see some of your posts at different times, and that would freak me out when I see there's like 3,000, 4,000 people that have viewed and commented. And sometimes the comments are in like 800 to 1,000 comments or response like that. So that tells you have an incredible show, incredible fan base. And we talked about the reason is because of just the incredible fans of Nebraska. Thank you. That's the reason that both of us have something that's kind of fun for us to do that works really well, is because Nebraska fans are just ridiculous. So just a big shout out to everybody who listens to me and Adam at different times.
I could not possibly agree anymore. There truly is no better fan base in the country than Husker Nation. And I've been a part of a lot of teams. A lot of teams say that. I've only said it personally about one fan base, and that's the Nebraska fans. Let's talk about Minnesota. Let's go backwards before we go forwards. And there is some positivity in here, and obviously I want to hear what you have to say. 24-6, not what we wanted, not what most people expected it to happen in Nebraska up in Minneapolis. What's your takeaway from the Minnesota game?
You know where I was really caught off, Adam, was they say I'd watched Minnesota a lot. I had, and I watched part of their Cal game, which was ugly. But I watched the entire Purdue game, watched the whole thing. We had the quad box going on the TV, so I could watch the whole thing, and I went to the full screen a lot. And I'm watching it, and Purdue literally, which I mentioned on our show, that just kicked the crap out of them, and they just didn't win the game. They threw a pick six late. I mean, they rushed for 250. Minnesota had no sacks against them. Both sides of the ball were Minnesota couldn't run the ball. They rushed it for like 50 yards or something in that game, whatever it was. It wasn't very much. So when you looked at that, I took it from that game and I looked at that game. I really felt it was almost you never say a cakewalk or a guarantee like that. But I felt it'd be a 21-point win. I really did. Because Nebraska might be a little battle to get away because across the board roster-wise, Nebraska has a better roster. They do. They have better roster. They clearly have better wide receivers. I know they have better guys in the back end. And anyway, you can go through all that stuff. But I was taken back with just what I saw and what I saw then. But Adam, you know this game is so crazy with emotion. They had that crazy pick six and win the game, and it changed Minnesota. They looked different against Nebraska. They really did. It wasn't like, oh wow, this is a team. They got beat 45-3 by Ohio State and only crossed the 50 once. But they looked like a different team. So just in a nutshell, to start off with, before we go into any details, was just that I was surprised by what I saw the week before by Minnesota, that they were able to, for a 24-6 game. Obviously, it was very, very surprising to me. Your thoughts on it?
I said going into the game, we should be a double-digit favorite. It was up to 9.5, and then it dropped down to 7. I think that's due to people not trusting Nebraska. I said we should win by double digits. I also said, here are my 3 concerns. Will we be focused? I don't think we were focused. At the end of the game, I was like, we weren't sharp. I don't know if it was lack of focus. You watched the game back. We were not focused and we were not sharp. And we were a step slow, even though most of our guys are a little bit faster than theirs, as you articulated a minute ago. I said, I don't know that Minnesota has an advantage in the trenches, but I'm a little concerned about the trenches. Oh, they had the advantage in the trenches. Neither team had a turnover, but we had some costly penalties, because I said turnovers and penalties could be an issue. I watched Purdue. I watched Rutgers. I watched those games. Minnesota really didn't outplay them, yet wins the game. Why do they win and outplay Nebraska? Why is it so different versus us in Europe?
Well, to start off with, like I said, so I started off, I'm the first person to say it, way back when I was as a old school kind of curmudgeon football coach growing up, with none of the coaches I worked for. It was kind of, a lot of energy, but by just old school. And I was not a huge PJ Fleck fan. I just wasn't. He kind of rubbed me in the wrong way. And that switched about 3 to 4 years ago. I started to switch a lot. I'm going, hang on now. I'm watching this guy's teams. And also what I gather from Minnesota, his players love him. Mm-hmm. His players, you can just tell they love him. I heard one of the guys said that we talked to said that, you know what, everyone knows the way PJ Fleck, when he comes into your house to recruit you, he knows if it's a fit or not right away, if it's going to work. And so if it is a fit, he does everything to get you. If it's not a fit, he just moves on. But for some reason, he has developed. When you watch him, would you not agree that Minnesota, I use the term buttoned up? Mm-hmm. I watch how they sprint on the field for special teams. I watch how they get away from punts. I watch every little detail that they have, and PJ Fleck does a great job for it. And you probably go back and say, how many games, I wonder, has he lost where he was clearly the better roster? And I'm going to bet it's very few. And he's also won games when he's not been. When he's not been the better roster. So I think this really gets back to the leadership from top down, from PJ Fleck down. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what we're going to do. I mean, I was in shock myself when they had ran, I think they'd already scored on it, I believe, but they had a 4th, and I'm going to say a foot from the 50-yard line. And I thought that maybe the running back even got the first. They thought they might review it, but it probably indisputable, couldn't do anything with it. I'm like, well, if you're not your roster, you feel you got to make you think you'd go for that 4th and a foot. He didn't. He punted it, played everything very tight to the vest. They were very conservative, on their game approach. I mean, the methodical drive for 98 yards, all those things, they really play within themselves, and they have a clear plan in their head of what they want to do. But I just look at that. I look at the head coach, and it's nothing's grab bag, and they just have a plan. And his staff is very well organized, so I think that's the best part. That's not saying Nebraska is not that. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying the reason he's had the success, like I said, he's 7-1 against Nebraska. And if you were sitting on the outside, Adam, and you were sitting there as the head coach at South Dakota State, and you could take the Minnesota job, or you can take the Nebraska job. Every single time, every coach would take Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And that's how I look at that. So that's pretty impressive for what he's done at Minnesota.
And now I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction, our longtime partners, because they do phenomenal work. Nobody is better when it comes to concrete work and retaining wall expertise. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. If you need concrete work, retaining wall work done, and the like, go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, if this is the type of work you do and you're looking for a good employer and a good job, Jason Armstrong is the guy you want to work for. Again, check them out at dpsconstruction.net. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors and good partners, Husker Auto Group. Check them out at huskerautogroup.com. They have new GMC Sierras at 20% off of MSRP. 2025 Chevy Silverados, 20% off as well. New 2025 Escalades in stock with $5,000 off of MSRP. Call Husker Auto Group for details. That number is 402-479-7500 or visit huskerautogroup.com. All trades accepted. Financing available with APR financing as low as 0%. 2025 models going fast. All new 2026 models are arriving daily. I would agree with that. So Matt Rhule says he likes this team, and I believe there's a really good culture in that locker room as an overall whole, and I believe his players love him. But let me ask you this question, and we don't have to spend too much time on it because Matt Rhule to Penn State has kind of been put aside, at least for now. But do you think going into the Friday game with everything that last week was, do you think it was a distraction, or maybe that affected how the players played on Friday before we move forward from the Minnesota game?
Sure, I appreciate that. I've commented on this before. I don't think so. Could there be a slight distraction because it's for a head coach or even for assistant coaches at a time? Because no matter what, they had to talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Matt Rhule in press conferences twice, I believe, had to address Penn State. Mm-hmm. Now he only addressed it for one reason, because they fired the Penn State coach. If the Penn State coach wouldn't have been fired, it never would have came up. So no matter what, it's a slight distraction because why am I talking about? So then you have to talk. So Matt Rhule, I'm sure, I think he mentioned it, if I'm right, Adam, he talked to the team about it.
Yes.
I think he even said something to him. Well, that's a little bit. But I did feel, and let's go back to you, when you're a young man playing football, that you really didn't. I don't think that Emmett Johnson went to bed on Wednesday night all concerned. I think he was ready to go back and play in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So I think the kids are not like, I don't think they're in the locker room getting their ankles taped going like, oh, man, what do you guys think? You think they're on their phones or texting each other like that in the locker room? Do you think this is Coach Rhule's leaving? No, they were just going to go play. Coaches can get a little bit more. Kids, I think, just like to play. And sometimes you're just flat. And I mean, you don't have 12 games where you're just clicking every single time. You know, yep. Ohio State against Illinois had like 260 yards of offense. Anything clicking. Their defense kind of held them out. So sometimes you have those days. I sure wouldn't put the loss on that.
I think I tend to agree with you. And this is kind of something I thought about since the game. Was that an anomaly? Because there's usually an outlier during the season. These aren't names and faces on a video game where if you're a 90 overall player, you always play at a 90. Sometimes you might be an 82. Sometimes you might be a 93. There's ups and downs. So Is this who Nebraska really is, or is this an anomaly? We'll find out versus a pretty good Northwestern team. Let's talk about something positive.
Sure.
Special teams. Again, multiple times this year, and once again, as we sit here right now, we have the number one graded special teams in the country, according to Pro Football Focus. How has Mike Ekeler been able to turn around our special teams so drastically, so quickly?
Well, like I said, and Coach Ekeler worked for Coach Pelini, and I worked for Coach Pelini, but me and Mike never crossed paths working together on the same staff, so I don't know him personally. But when I watch, I say the same thing I mentioned earlier about Minnesota. What I see is I don't see substitution errors. I don't see palms up. I don't see confusion. I see a scheme that is relatively simple, which allows players to execute. I think that's the part that I watch. It's very organized with a plan. A big difference is that they have a dynamic returner. When you have a dynamic returner, then you have chances, because on really good punt returns, if you go back and watch them, I've always said this in my history of being a special teams. If you're going to get a big returner, one for a touchdown, a big one, he's going to have to make at least two guys miss and break a tackle. It's not going to be he just caught it and they blocked everybody and he just ran for a touchdown. It has happened, but in general, the dynamic punt returns, you go, oh wow. And so they have a dynamic punt returner. And they have, like I said, in the punt game, they have an odd situation where they can rugby both directions. And so it creates a little bit of issues. Time for the launch point on the ball is longer. When you snap and roll, that gives your coverage more time to get down the field. So that creates a positive there. And so I just see great organization, a good evaluation. And I know when I took over on special teams, not to be a clown, we went up a significant amount. And the reason we went up a large amount was because we weren't very good. You know, the spots earlier took over. You know, it's easy to move up a lot of spots when you were 128th in some spots out of it. So that always helps. That always helps too. But he's doing a great job. Like I said, I love watching it. Hopefully our paths cross sometime and I get a visit with him, because I like talking to special teams with people. But if I'm in Nebraska, I'm very excited about it. But you don't see errors. And I always say you lose more games than you win. So what you don't see is balls on the ground, busted different things happening. And that's what's good right now, is that they're not losing any games. Prior to last year, maybe not have lost games, but they were losing the special teams on things, instead of just being like, hey, let's just do this. If we just become, a little improved, there'll be a lot. And then obviously Coach Ekeler has improved him a lot. So great job by him.
For those who may not remember, Coach Busch was actually at two separate times, Nebraska's special teams coordinator. Twice, once here, once there. Both times the special teams improved quite a bit.
We had great kids. That's why they improved. We had really good kids.
Pretty good coaching.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a returner. So that was a smart decision on your point, on your part there.
Yeah.
All right. The offensive line, we're giving up an average of over 5 sacks in our 4 Big Ten games so far this year. Just what are your thoughts on the offensive line? And that's all. I'm going to put it like that.
Well, I was with Coach Raiola for a year, and so I know how hard he works. I know the time he puts in. I know his knowledge and obviously playing the position at a high level. So I know that part is really good. When you look at the part that if you just went back one game, the shocking part is that against Purdue, they had no sacks. In the previous game, which was a tougher game like that, but they had no sacks. So the last two games they hadn't had a sack. Then they have 9. So that's like you're rushing for 80 yards a game, and then against a good team you rush for 320. Type of a switch in the numbers. So that we never went into, and I'm not sure if you did, Adam, but I know on our show we never once talked about the pass rush for Purdue. We did against Maryland. Talked about they had some pass rushers, had some things. We never even talked about Purdue being a factor. We had a guy on from
Minnesota
being a factor in that game, and so we never even talked about it. And so all of a sudden they have 9. You look at it, probably 4 to 5 on the offensive line. One would have been clearly on a running back, on Emmett, on a pressure by a linebacker, and probably 1 or 2 on the quarterback. And there was a clear bust when the defensive end got turned loose on the protection like that. So you see a little bit of everything that goes on with it. But that's always it. And someone says, most of the time when someone says, well, the Packers got sacked 5 times, I would imagine they'd say 3 are on the O-line, 1's on the quarterback, 1's on the running back. That's generally, it's never like, oh, it's all just the one position. So it's kind of been in different spots when it hits. But those plays add up a lot. It takes the stinger away from you. Call them plays, that's for sure.
So it's fair to say not buttoned up in our pass protection then, basically.
There's no way you could.
Yeah.
I fight so hard. I've been on sides on, and I'm so pro coach. And so I'm talking coordinator, I'm talking position coach, because I know the time that they put in. They're not just like, oh, that's crazy. We didn't even think about that. Yes, they have. They've thought about all that. It's been worked, all those things that are happening. But in the end, okay, what is it? It's still 9 sacks. It's still 7 against Michigan. It's still, and then the shocking one too would probably be, Michigan State with 5. All you can do really, there's things in play actions that slows down pass rush. Quick game slows down pass rush, and they've tried to slow down pass rush with all the wide receiver screens. That eliminates pass rush. Also, Minnesota defended the wide receiver screen very well, because against Michigan State, they hit one for about 50 plus for a touchdown. They did the same thing to Maryland, and that one didn't get out. One of those plays didn't get out against Minnesota, but that's how you slow down a pass rush, is a screen game also.
I almost wonder if it's a little bit, because Michigan State had 0 sacks versus Power 4 teams, and you already mentioned Minnesota 0 sacks in their previous 2 games. And then those 2 teams combined have 14 sacks, yet Maryland, who led the Big Ten in sacks, had 1 against us. You could see screen game, chips, establish the run early. I wonder if they thought they didn't need to do those things versus those teams. I think going forward, you have to assume you have to do it every game, because we're not playing Houston Christian again. So hopefully that's our approach going forward. I want to give a shout out to another sponsor of ours and a longtime partner for a good reason, because they're really, really, really good at what they do. Allen Capital Group. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're searching for a financial planner who is rooted in Nebraska value, Allen Capital Group is a homegrown Nebraska business with offices in Grand Island, Ogallala, Scottsbluff, and Omaha. They will work to understand what is meaningful to your financial needs, wants, and wishes, and they have personally helped me and my family navigate our finances for years. Actually over a decade. They know what they're doing, and they genuinely care and do what is best and prioritize their clients. Check out their website at allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com for more information. Allen Capital Group has next level solutions for next level needs. I also want to give a shout out to 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Nobody does it better, ladies and gentlemen. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. They are located at 2405 P Street in Lincoln, locally owned for 2 decades, 20 years, ladies and gentlemen. If and when you go in, ask for Dean Phelps. He's the owner. He's a good dude. Or Eric or Jeff, and tell them that Adam sent her. They do great work at a reasonable price. As you know, we now have kids who are driving, and it's where my family, my wife and I and my kids take all of our vehicles to be taken care of. Everything from oil changes to engine replacements. They offer shuttle rides, loaner vehicles, financial aid as well if needed. Again, that's 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. Speaking of something else Minnesota wasn't phenomenal at, and I don't mean to keep bringing up Minnesota, but it's our most recent game. The game before they played us, they rushed for 34 yards. Against us, they rushed for 286 and averaged over 5 yards a carry. Now, our defensive secondary is vastly improved this year. So shout out to Butler, to Addison, to all those guys that have improved our coverage. But we're struggling up front. We were getting not destroyed back, but knocked back versus an okay Minnesota offensive line. And just for those who know, Minnesota's offensive line, their 5 starters averaged 319 pounds. Our O-line is not small. They average 317, so it's a minimal difference. So we have good size on our O-line versus their O-line. Our D-line is obviously a little bit smaller and younger this year. But why do we struggle? In your humble opinion, former D coordinator, you came in and worked on tackling right away when you went from special teams to D coordinator a few seasons ago. How do they improve tackling and stopping the run as a whole, in your humble opinion?
Well, the first thing you want to look at, obviously, you're just looking at just gap sound, do the things you have to do, which they do, and everyone knows that. The next one is tackling by population. I use the term roll call on the ball. If there's a miss, if there is something happens, you have to be able to have effort to the football, to somebody else that can make a play. The next thing is that, and I don't think that they're not doing this. I see them lined up correctly. A lot of times you'll see people trying to disguise and they drop down safeties late, and all of a sudden they're a primary B gap player, but they're a drop down safety. Well, that's a hard tackle. All of a sudden the B gap opens up. You're dropping down from 10 to 12 yards, dropping down, and all of a sudden, boom, it's on you. I don't see a lot of that where they're trying to over disguise too much to have it happen. Probably the errors that have come up have been in the tackling in the back end for allowing larger runs. I know that was something in the Michigan game.
Yep.
And so the only thing that I talk about tackling is it always like, oh, that's kind of odd. It's that you tackle with your feet, which means how fast can you eat up the grass? If you have space on somebody that's even just decent, you know how hard it is to make open field tackles. You've chased an elusive quarterback, haven't you? How hard is it? I mean, you're going like, everyone's like, oh, you missed it. You know how hard that is?
Yep.
And so those things come up. And so, the biggest thing you want to work on the most is population and how fast can I close the space they have to operate in. That's the big key, is that I have to have less space, because when it's up there in space, you talk about something breaks out and also you're like going, oh, wow, that guy's got a two-way go on me and I'm the guy in space. So to be able to eliminate space, I always use the term eat up the grass. To be able to do that will be the thing you want to be able to get done. But tackling with your feet and population to the football will be one that comes up the most. Minnesota also had a lot of 6-yard runs.
Yes.
They did a nice job up front, and the O-line just looked different. So in my mind, it has to come back to one thing a little bit, that maybe we're a little bit lesser up front than what we thought we were. And that's because when people right now are like, Maryland rushed the ball more than what they had been rushing for, correct? Am I accurate with that?
They were averaging 93 yards. They rushed for 130 against us.
So not a big number, but more. So I think people look at it, and then I think the team coming in here, Northwestern, operates somewhere around, they rush for, I think, 250 against Purdue. And so they're looking at this thing. What are they going to do? They're going to huddle. They're going to shorten the game. They're going to try to get to. They're happy at 2nd and 6. They're giddy on the sideline. It's 2nd and 6. Okay, we're in control. We're at 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s, and able to go. So that's what's going to come up from now. I always say when you get to this time of the season, your stats become real after game 8, who you are, because everybody has the Houston Christians, and it blows up your stats one way or the other. So look at conference stats, because that's more real. And then also now you have stuff on film. People have a long a list of a volume of cut-ups on you. So if there's something that you do, Adam, that you do really well, they're not going to allow you to do it. And something you don't do well, they're going to make you do it every play. That's kind of.
I think that was a great point. You made several great points, but how many times were they 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5 while we're getting sacked? So they tackled us in our backfield almost 1 out of every 3 plays, either a sack or a tackle for a loss. It was almost 1 out of every 3.
Wow, I didn't.
So they're at 2nd and 6. Well, it was. I talked about it in my Sunday night show. I want to say it was 19 out of 54 times, which, if I remember correctly, I believe is 35%. It's actually more than 1 out of every 3. So we're sitting there at 2nd and 12, 14. They're sitting there at 2nd and 6. That's huge.
Game changers. I'm the most shocked. Adam, are you the most shocked that the score was 24-6 and Nebraska didn't turn it over? I mean, if someone told me that,
I didn't even thought about that. Honestly, that's crazy.
If someone just read it to me, if I was out doing something, I'm shopping. Hey, Nebraska lost 24-6 to Minnesota. I'd have been like, wow, turnovers, killer. No turnovers. That shocks me.
So going forward, how realistic is it to try to improve in things like this during the season? People have a blueprint for what we are successful at, what we're not great at right now. I mean, there's a lot of ball left to play this year.
Absolutely.
To me, I'm like, people are like, yeah, people are like, we might get to a bowl game. I was like, wait a minute.
That'll happen. Trust me.
Wait a minute now. We're not going
Agreed.
10-2. We're not going 5-7. Just somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so how realistic is it to try to improve as the season goes along for the rest of the year? And also, let's take it one game at a time. Northwestern.
There's a couple things that sometimes people think it's just, that's just that's stupid. That's not how it works. Your attitude and what your vibe on your team is, it matters so much. Adam, you were part of that team when we turned things around and then made all the Colorado fans get kicked out of the game and all. Remember that thing was, and we win the game against K-State. Remember how that team changed? We go and win the Alamo Bowl. Remember how that team just all of a sudden is like, we could have played with anybody by the time we got to the end. Things change. Mm-hmm. And so what is the vibe like? UAB was probably the most toxic school there was. They fire Trent Dilfer. They bring in Mortensen as the coach, and they go and they upset Memphis. That tells me that you're what the vibe of practice. So I know it gets down to blocking, tackling, all these things. Your vibe has to be really good. You have to be able to have a plan to wash things away. The staff is like, here we go, bury the ball, move on. Here's where we're going forward. Here's what we're going to get done. That means more than anything is how you practice with what your energy is like and what is it doom and gloom when you walk out, or how are those coaches? What's the staff like? All those things matter because they can improve enough to be able to get things going in the right way. I mentioned this today also. We're not playing Alabama or Georgia on Saturday. It's Northwestern.
Yep.
And the roster, they're very well coached. I'm just going to tell you once again, Nebraska's got a better roster.
Yes.
Hey, take care of our business, do our stuff, and pick out a couple things that are a little different, little tweaks that are easy. How do I find an easy 5 yards here? How do I find a free access throw? How do I find a quick game? What do I do in play action where I can chip and release to get a play action? And Dylan's got to check down if he doesn't have the big shot on a deep crosser or something. So can they do that? Yes. They figured out between both sides, here's what we're going to do. But the attitude of the team will probably mean more than anything. It's going to be an 11 a.m. kick, and it's super awkward time. It's a super awkward time to go to play in that game. So, but we said on air today, and Sipple hates it, but he went with us. It's really kind of a must-win. I mean,
it is.
This game is. I mean, say what you want. It'd be really hard if you and me were talking next week, and Northwestern was a loss. Because the last four teams are all better than Northwestern. They're more talented than Northwestern is. So this is close to a must-win, and they are a good team. High respect for them. 5-2, done a great job of coaching. I mean, unbelievable job of coaching, in my opinion. And so they've got them ready to go. So, but I expect, I guess, I still would predict Nebraska to win. I see it probably more of a 22-21 game. I think they're going to run the football and run the clock and huddle up.
They're going to be like Minnesota all over again. And frankly,
you can just look at it. Yep, exactly.
Frankly, they should be. I remember that Colorado game. They tried to fight us at the 50-yard line before the game.
Awesome,
we beat them 30
changed our whole mood.
Oh, we beat them 30-3. Their entire student section was kicked out. We had the ball for 40 minutes. They had it for 20. I remember that game like it was nobody's business. I sacked Joe Klatt a couple times, so I remember that too. You think about UCLA. They hadn't led the entire year. Let go of Deshaun. Nothing bad about Deshaun, but they've won 3 in a row. That's a mentality and an attitude in their locker room. You look at Penn State. They got one of the top 5 best rosters in the country, and they can't win a ball game to save their lives.
Yeah.
So you're completely right. It's one game at a time. Was Minnesota an anomaly, or is that who we are? We'll find out because it's going to be Northwestern, just like Minnesota, all over again. Any quick thoughts you have on Dylan Raiola? Not a score prediction, but do you think we'll beat Northwestern this Saturday?
I really like Dylan Raiola's his calmness. You can just tell, and he processes very fast. I see him as a processor, and then that's the difference in all coaches. I mean, all quarterbacks. Just watch Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt. What's he do? Processes at a ridiculous rate how fast things happen, and he sees everything. You see guys, the escapability sometimes. They can just how many times have you been rushing somebody thinking, I'm going to take this guy out blindside, and he whips out around you because they just have this sixth sense. I think that Dylan has a lot of those qualities. He can process very fast, and he sees the field very, very good, and so that helps with it. But a difficult part when you start watching some of these teams, and I'm watching Gunnar Stockton, or I'm watching Ty Simpson, all of these Georgia, Alabama quarterback, Pavia, all these different quarterbacks is that they make a lot of plays with their feet. And the yards, they get a lot of positive yards with their feet, or they have designed runs. And so when there's not a lot of designed runs for you in the run game like Nebraska has, it makes it more difficult. As a defensive coordinator, I'm terrified to play 11-on-11 football. Which means because the only way you have a free hat for the quarterback when they have 10 guys that can block is you only got one. There's only one typically that's free. And so you always try to have the term free hitter comes up all the time. Well, who is that? Well, it's the free safety, or it's this guy. You can do it different scheme-wise, but it flattens you out and it makes you play way different. So with that makes it a little bit harder in running the football when there's not as much quarterback run or the true quarterback scramble, because the scramble just terrifies you. You saw Diego Pavia score on about a 25-yard touchdown scramble. It just broke out. Everything opened up, whoop, gone for a touchdown. And so those things bother you. But Raiola scrambles well enough. So he has enough things that he can do to make enough things happen. I don't think that's the issue, at all. But it is harder in having a lot of large running numbers, because all the large rushing numbers in general you watch, the quarterback has numbers within the rush game. And so that always factors in. And then do I feel they win? Yes. I 100% think, but I think it'll be hard. I think it'll be hard, which means probably it's going to be blowout, because last game I thought was going to be a blowout and it wasn't. So trust me. So if people want to push back at me, I'm like, I can take that. But the matchup says tough game. But then you don't know either. Yep. You get Northwestern when they're on an outlier game and they just won't play well. They don't do things, are not right with that. I don't see Northwestern coming in here going like, oh, I think they'll still be chip on the shoulder type of a thing. There was a time 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we do a rank that whole 18, me, Sip, and Jake. We had him 18th. We had Northwestern dead last like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Now you have him, we'll do it again tomorrow. We'll probably have him somewhere around 11th.
Yep.
Maybe even 10th. And they were in UCLA and then took over dead last. Not anymore. So teams change. And I'm telling you right now, Northwestern has a great locker room for attitude. They did it his first year, right? His first year, he came in unprepared as a head coach, and they got to a bowl game. So they'll have a good attitude coming in there, which will be a little bit of a problem.
Time for our fan questions, brought to you by Husker Auto Group. And the first question I got for you fine folks at home. Number one, will Nebraska be able to refocus mentally for this Northwestern game? Number two, can Nebraska hold Northwestern under 100? Will they hold them under 150 yards rushing? Number three, will we run for over 150 yards versus Northwestern? All right, ladies and gentlemen, you want to throw the bones with me,
Absolutely.
Coach? All right, go Big Red. Remember to throw the bone.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you.